Hello and welcome to Cloud Force Vibes. My name's Bobby, and this is how I grow orchids and carnivorous plants. Hello and welcome to Cloud Force Vibes. So today, we're just going to have a look around. I've had a lot going on the last couple weeks. I haven't been able to shoot very many videos in here, but there has been quite a few changes. I've rearranged a few plants. I've moved things around. I've kind of packed things that way a little bit more, trying to get them a little bit more sunlight since the seasons are about to change. Our light levels are dwindling. They are getting shorter by the day. So in the hopes of keeping everything healthy and happy through the next few seasons, I have rearranged some things, and I'm just hoping to have as much success this winter as I have this spring and summer. It's been a really, really good year. Having that said, there's a whole lot of progress to look at with a lot of these plants in both the tent and the tank, but we're going to go ahead, I'm going to get this camera off the tripod, and we're going to go ahead through here first because there is a lot going on. So here we go. Thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this update. First things first, I figured we'd take a look at my Phalaenopsis bellina. I have got this beautiful flower on and another bud coming right next to it, and let me tell you, this has been such a joy. I've waited for this for about 2 years. I've had this plant growing. I knew it wasn't going to bloom for a while when I bought it. It was sold to me as pretty much a seedling, but I can happily say that we are past that point, and it is finally producing these awesome blooms. It's very strongly fragranced. It has a awesome citrusy kind of sweet, almost like a cleaning product. Almost, I do agree with some of the other people I've spoken to about this, but it's strong, it's a daytime scent, and it is just awesome. I can't wait to see the next bloom come out. Hopefully we have that here in about a month, but I don't know how much longer this is going to last. This is my first time blooming it, but man, what a beauty. Absolutely love this bloom. Other news in the Phalaenopsis world, I have repotted my miniatures. I've given them the next size pot up. They really needed it, and they look really nice, I think. I went with a large bark, perlite, charcoal, and just a tiny bit of sphagnum moss mix in these pots this time, and I think it's going to do really well. I've also, let me go ahead and just grab it out. I went ahead and I repotted my new Phalaenopsis pulcherrima as well. This one I used a little bit more bark and charcoal because it is a terrestrial. I've barely used any moss in this at all. I'm hoping to give it a lot of air. It said it needed a really good drainage to keep this thing happy, so I am just hoping it keeps growing on. Had really nice roots, and I just can't wait to see how it grows for me. Has a really neat flower. We'll get that back down here. Here's another one of my new plants. This is my Angraecum pseudo-filicornu, and this came potted from Tarzan. You saw it in my last video, and I have gone ahead and put this thing on a mount, bare rooted. I give it a quick spray every day and make sure the roots dry out, but it is doing well so far. It's got a new leaf pushing on. No roots have died off or anything like that. It was a healthy plant when I got it, so it is doing just fine, getting adjusted to my grow environment, as is the Restrepia subote, which is down here. I did go ahead and throw it on a mount. It's going to grow down here next to my Masdevallia exquisita, which I also mounted in my shady grower spot, and so far so good. Haven't seen an ounce of decline in this plant. It actually does have a new growth coming on it, so I'm monitoring that as well as the roots that it did have and making sure that it stays happy and healthy and grows on nicely. Moving on up, for one of my relocates, I have my Dicea hystracina here. You guys rarely ever see this plant. It's an awesome little miniature, and it hasn't really done much for me. I've had this plant for about 2 years. It's put on the 7 new growths that you see, but it really hasn't done much at all. So I've moved it up, I'm giving it a bit more light. It is a very light phobic plant. It does not like sun at all, so I've put it here in the shadow of my big Maxillaria parkeri, and I'm hoping that having it adjacent to the window gives it enough indirect light to where it's going to start to grow on and be happier here, because something's going to change. Something's got to give with this plant. It has got to start growing more, or we're going to have to figure out something else. So got a few plants like that. I think I'm going to do another video here soon, and we're going to talk about plants I have that need attention, that aren't growing quite the way they should be growing. I have a handful, just like everybody who has a collection of this size, and I don't know about you guys, but I get tired of looking at them, so we have to figure it out. Let's see, moving along, here we have our Catasetum shunkii, which I don't know if you guys can tell from our last update or not, but this thing is growing like a weed. It's getting pretty big. The roots are doing really well. They're growing all the way to the bottom of the mount, and yes, I finally started watering this plant this past week. I'm sorry I didn't get it on film, but we're about 3 or 4 waterings in. The pseudobulbs have kind of plumped back up a little bit, and as I said, it is just starting to grow like a rocket. Really cool plant. I'm so happy I mounted this thing. I think it looks awesome, and I just cannot wait to see if I'm able to get this thing to bloom. I'm really looking forward to seeing Catasetum blooms in this tent. Our Brassivola regina finally dropped its flower a couple days ago, but I do have great news. The Brassivola subulifolia has a little bit of a sheath going on here, so a little nubbin starting at the base of its newest growth, and I am hoping perhaps that blooms as well. If not, what I do see here as well, I just noticed, is some new roots finally growing on this plant. So what that means is probably tomorrow, since I do have some time this weekend, it is going to have to come off this stick. It is time. I only have a couple sticks left. Another plant that is on the stick that needs to come off is this Dendrobium canaliculatum. It has a nice new growth down here at the base, which has pushed on some roots, and it started to form another new growth here, and it's just pushing on the first signs of a new growth at this larger, newest growth at the base. So roots are going to be following very soon from the top growth and the newest growth on the bottom, and I think it's going to be a really good time very shortly to get this thing off of the stick as well. It's always a little nerve-wracking when you're unmounting a plant from a stick, especially one that's grown on like these guys, where they have just roots on roots on roots gripping the bare branch. It is very, very nerve-wracking, to say the least. So I'll take you guys along with me on that journey, and you guys can see exactly how I do it with plants that are just this fastened on, because it's tough. So some more new blooms. I have this lovely little dendrobium here, and this is Dendrobium helwegianum, and it is in bloom. You can barely see them. They're small flowers, not as prevalent as they were last year, but they are beautiful nonetheless. It has put on a ton of new growth. I mean, an absolute horde of new growth this year, so I'm not necessarily upset at the lack of blooms, but they are really cool. They're pushing on a few more slowly but surely. I see the one in the middle's got a couple coming on, and this has at least one more coming, and as does the one in the middle there. But really neat little blooms. Let me see if I can prop this up and get you guys in a bit closer. Yeah, really neat little blooms. Delicate pink with a little orange lip. Tiny guys. Clustering type. This is a New Guinea species, and I do love this plant. I've had this thing for a little under 2 years, about a year and a half. It's grown really well for me, and again, look at all that new growth. This plant has doubled in size in a year, so really excited to see what this thing does from here on out. Another new bloom that we have, our Dyneema polybulbin decided to surprise us with one late bloom in the season. Always welcome. Lovely little flower. Orange and brown with a white lip that's got this beautiful yellow venation on it down the center. Smells really good, really sweet smell. You got to get right up on it. Not a strong smell, but a very good one. And this plant, since its remount, has just gone nuts. It is growing, growing, growing. Very excited about it. Stepping over 2 plants to the left, we have our big bad Bulbophyllum maximum that you guys saw me tame down and get attached to this mount. And all the new growths are growing on well. They're big, they're bad, they're bold. When the growths are growing, it gets this awesome patterning on them. It does fade over time. It goes to just a normal green color. But while they're growing, they are really beautiful. They really truly are. It's got the speckling. Nice patterning to them. The whole sheath and everything has that patterning as it grows. It's a really attractive plant. And I'm just hoping after this season it's got enough strength to finally show itself and show us its blooms. It's a really, really cool plant. Our Sophronites pygmaea is still in bloom. It's the last Cattleya type that we have out, actually. It has outlasted everything else, which I am absolutely thrilled about because what a beautiful little flower. I think this is my favorite Cattleya type to bloom so far in my collection. And the camera, I tell you what, just does not do this bloom justice. It truly is beautiful. You guys have to see it in person to really appreciate it though. I'm eagerly awaiting my other Sophronites to bloom. The Manticulae here is doing well since its remount. It has got a new growth pushing on strong. So I'm hopeful for spring or summer, maybe we can see that one. And my Sophronites cernua is absolutely going nuts. It's got new growths coming out the top, it's got new growths coming out the sides, it's got new growths coming out the bottom, new roots, the whole shabazz. So I think maybe one more year and hopefully we'll be able to see this little seedling start to get mature enough to really come to life and hopefully give us blooms. Another small division that's doing really well is this Laelia lilliputana, and my newest growth is this one, and as you see it is way bigger than anything that we've got on it so far. The leaf is at least twice the size of anything else on it. The growth behind it isn't too much smaller. And it does have a third new growth pushing on from the other side, just starting. So, really exciting. Another Cattleya species that seems to be doing well in my grow area. So this big monster right here is Bulbophyllum macranthum. And as you can see, it has finally decided to open up the leaf on its newest growth. This is its first new growth for me. I've had this plant about a year, and it was bigger. It was another 2 bulbs longer, but it rotted and it rotted, and I had to cut it back to this growth. Then it pushed out a new growth here, which rotted, and now we finally have success here. And I noticed that just in here it's starting to push on yet another new growth. So we'll have 2 directions of growth from this plant very soon, and hopefully in the next couple years we'll be able to see this thing bloom. The mount is maturing quite nicely. I'm actually loving the fact it's got a little fern coming on it and stuff. I really like that kind of stuff. It really makes the mount look natural, so I think it's going to get to stay, at least for now, until it becomes a nuisance. But that is Bulbophyllum macranthum, and it is finally growing strong. Now down here, through this section, and the next shelf up, I've had some extensive rearranging going on. So what I've done is I've slid everything further that way. The sunlight comes in and bathes these plants for a very short time in the morning, and they are well shaded by other plants above them and by the Spanish moss and the plants in front of them from the actual sun itself. And I have noticed them perk up quite a bit since doing that, even though this is, where my Psychopsis, my Miltoniopsis, my Encyclia actually got moved down here as well. This is the, God, what are you, Rufescens? Bractescens, I'm sorry. Encyclia bractescens got moved down here. My Dendrobium rotostictum, my Miltonia phymatochyla, all of them got moved down into this brighter section. And then I've moved my Twinkle, my Gomessa vericosa, or Oncidium vericosa, up so it gets a little bit stronger artificial light, because I have trouble blooming Oncidiums and I'm convinced it's a light issue. I had those plants down here, I had these plants over here, and I had these plants even further over, and I am just going to experiment a little bit by giving this section more light and hoping that I can revive some of these plants into blooming and being happier. That really does just about do it in here. I'll do a little walk around just to give you guys a once over of all the plants I got, and so you can see the progress. But we're going to go ahead and head on over to the tank. I have a few things in there I really want to show and share with you guys, and I think you'll appreciate it. But for now, everything in the tent is just growing, growing, growing. So happy. Got the mist going on. I'm back out. Nice little ambiance. And that is my little jungle, guys. So let's go get set up. Let's go look at the tank. And I'll meet you back here in just 1 minute. We're back, we're at the tank. Everything in here is growing like crazy. And I'm sure the first thing that you notice is our Dendrobium Cuthbertsonii here has finally dropped its bloom. Which is okay, because right behind it we have another bud forming on the next growth. So this is going to be back in flower very soon, and we're actually going to get to track in my environment how long the blooms last, which is really, really awesome. I hate to say that I missed it by about a day, but our Telepagona flora had 4 or 5 blooms open yesterday, and they all closed overnight. I'm a little bit blown, but it's got a couple more to come, so I will make sure I get that on a video here soon. But sometimes it's very elusive. It seems like in the summer months especially, the blooms only last about 36 to 48 hours. Sometimes you'll get about a week out of them in the cooler weather, but when it's warm, they really do tend to go pretty quickly, unfortunately. So everything else is growing like crazy. We just had another mass blooming here on our Lepanthes mariposa. It's still got a couple blooms open. The Helicocephala, same story. And the Calodictyon as well. These things have been blooming their heads off. But that is not why we're here. The reason we are here is this lovely little plant, which I'm probably going to have to stop and refocus for, so give me a second. Our Macroclinium dalstromii has finally started to open up its first couple blooms, and boy, let me tell you, this is very difficult to film. I'm going to go ahead and probably cut my losses. I'll have to figure something else out for this. We'll come back and look when they are fully open, but that is what they look like when they begin. And in the next couple days, you're really going to see a transformation in these little blooms. They are translucent and green with purple spotting, and they are just beautiful. I'm going to have to try a lot harder to get a better close-up for you guys. But that's one of our new ones. And another awesome orchid that we have in bloom is our Lepanthopsis astrophora. And we've got 1, 2, and 3 beautiful spikes open on this plant right now. This one is just finishing up its last few flowers, but these two are in full bloom, full glory. And I tell you what, this plant has been in continuous bloom for a while, and it just does not get old. It is an awesome, awesome little plant. I'll swing around here so I can give you guys a little bit better look at the actual plant itself. It is kind of grassy. It's got these stems, almost somewhat like a pleurothallid. You know, it is a pleurothallid. But it's got these awesome spikes that come out with multiple flowers. And they just bloom over and over and over again. I just cut all the spikes off this plant about a month ago or two. And as you see, it's already got a bunch of spent spikes and brand new ones all over it. So, continuous bloomer. Beautiful little flowers, and one that always is fun. Finally, let me go ahead and get it out. This one's worth a closer look. Here we have our beautiful Dendrobium cuthbertsonii hybrid. Forgive me, I'm gonna have to put the name up. I still cannot remember the name of this plant. It's a phanocylum or a phanochyla or something like that, but Dendrobium cuthbertsonii crossed with Dendrobium aphanochyllum, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It just opened up yesterday. Small but absolutely charming little bloom. It's looks like it's coated in crystals, and it's got another one right behind it. So this plant should be in bloom for quite a while. I am thrilled with this plant. It's a good sized little Dendrobium cuthbertsonii hybrid, and I think it's going to end up going on a mount. I haven't sorted this one out yet. I need to do that either today or tomorrow, most likely tomorrow with the rest of them, but yeah, I just see this thing growing on a mount. I think it'll present itself a lot nicer. But currently still have this thing living down here in the mist, in the fog, loving life. Oh, that reminds me, one of my subscribers had asked me why I don't show the mist and the fog rolling more often. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this thing closed up. I'll get the camera back on the tripod and we'll close out by looking at that. We'll look at the mist and the fog and the clouds and how they actually circulate through this tank. Alrighty, so camera's back set, and here we go. I've explained it a few times before, but I have the mist system, or the humidity system. In this case, it is a Reptile ultrasonic humidifier piped into the very bottom of this tank, and I have these small computer fans that are angled towards the glass that blow the air down and recycle it back towards the back of the tank, which will actually lift the fog up through the back of the tank and recycle it all through this tank over and over again. There's fans at the top which help import or export air depending on what we need, and some ventilation holes as well drilled into the front panel of this orchidarium that I've built. But for anybody who's ever wanted to see the clouds actually rolling in the cloud forest, this is it. It's a little bit hard to pick up on the camera, but I do believe you can see it. It is more dramatic in person, so anyhow, I hope you guys enjoy. I really do appreciate you guys for tuning in and for all your support. Sorry I've been so busy. Should be able to reclaim my life next weekend after all the madness of the past few weeks, so there should be more videos coming out soon. I have tons and tons of stuff to update you guys on, and a bunch more things to do, and hopefully teach you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate you, and I hope you're all staying safe. And until next time, happy growing.